how's it going? Just thought I'd drop on here and do a little thing about free will. Do we have free will? Well, I'm going to answer that first scientifically, and then we'll go into some other areas of this question. I left a link in the description. It's where I got this from. Free will is defined as an action that has no external cues to start it. The person feels that he or she wants to do it and feels in control of what and when it is being done. This is the interesting part. Voluntary acts have been found. It is a scientific fact, in other words, that voluntary acts are preceded in our brains by a readiness potential. In other words, neurons are firing before we do any voluntary act, averaging 550 milliseconds before the act. Awareness of the subject to want to do the act was reported at 200 milliseconds before the act. This means that basically we have 300 milliseconds in which our consciousness can override our unconsciousness as to whether or not we're going to act or not. Because remember, the unconsciousness has already decided it wants to act. So we have 350 milliseconds in which our consciousness can override our unconscious. What does this mean for free will? Well, scientifically it means we may or may not have free will, especially the way it is theologically defined. So getting away from the scientific aspect of it, and just going on an everyday aspect of it. You know, I told you I'd give you the scientific aspect of it, and then I'd give you the everyday aspect of it. It seems, hey Marianne, hey Compelled. This is true, Compelled Unbeliever, but I'm not talking about Christian theology. We have 350 milliseconds in which we can override, our conscious mind can override whether or not we do a voluntary action that was already in our unconscious mind. So our unconscious mind has already decided it's going to act before we even begin to realize that we want to do this act, basically. So do we have, in this, scientifically then, do we have free will? Maybe. It's a definite maybe. The jury's still out on it as to whether scientifically we have free will, even though we do have 350 milliseconds, which in brain time is a lot of time, but if we're talking about regular time, that's not a whole lot of time. But our brain processes stuff like that. So, in brain time, it really is a long time, even though we don't think it is. Now, Compelled had a good... Oh, okay, Marianne. Well, I left the article in the description if you want to go look at it. Now, like I said, the jury's still out. Compelled, that's actually the legal definition. Which can or may not be the same as the scientific definition. And we also need to know, we also need to understand that this is life stage. We're talking about adults. When we're talking about the scientific experiment, we're talking about adults. Teenagers gets a little murky because their pathway hasn't developed. There's a thing called the amygdala that is back here in what is known as the reptilian brain. It's just called the reptilian brain because it is very, very ancient. And we have up here, we have prefrontal cortices. There are two. And the prefrontal cortices don't actually develop all the way until we are into our mid-20s. This is why most countries have leniency toward juvenile offenders, is because they understand that juvenile offenders are not quite in control of what they do. They don't have sorry they don't have quite the capacity for the prefrontal cortices, which are up here, to quickly override the amygdala, which is what's like, the amygdala is what makes us angry. Well, it doesn't make us angry, but it's what gives us the feeling of anger. You know, any kind of feelings like that start with the amygdala. And so the path between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortices has not fully developed, and neither have the prefrontal cortices developed in people below the age of mid-20s. So basically, courts, even in the United States, even though they're getting tougher, courts have tended to be lenient toward juvenile offenders, even in the United States, because they pretty much know this. So, do we have free will? Like I said, scientifically, the verdict is still out. But Compelled Unbeliever is absolutely correct in saying that theologically, if the Christian God exists, we have no free will because He knows everything we're going to do. And he has already made a decision to either not let us do it or to let us do it. That is the theological answer. Theologically, no way, Jose. At least not in Christianity. Scientifically, like I said, the verdict's still out. Sex drive compelled? Sex drive, anger, anything like that. Anything that is considered a base, and when I mean base, I don't mean like icky, I don't mean like, I mean like our fundamental actions, like anger, sex, joy, that kind of thing. Those can, not necessarily do, overtake free will, yes. But again, you do have this 350 milliseconds of the consciousness being able to override what is called the reaction potential that starts 550 milliseconds before the person even reports that they want to, say, move their hand. By the time the person reports, 350 milliseconds have already passed since our brains have said to us, yeah, I want to do this. Hey, free spirit. So, yeah, if you want to think about it that way, compelled, you can. Again, anger will do the same thing. Basically anything that is in our little reptilian brains back here. And again, reptilian brain is it's a scientific term, but the more scientific term would be the paleocortex. But the reptilian brain is also a scientific term. You probably hear that term, the reptilian brain, a lot more than you would hear the paleocortex. So I'm trying to use words that you might hear more. Interesting you should say that, free spirit. Not about, I know what you mean about love with condition with the Christian God, but that was another thing I was going to get into. Hey, Nacha. Love actually doesn't have anything to do with free will. It actually has a lot to do with serotonin, which is the love chemical. And, let's see, I think it's oxytocin, which is the bonding neurochemical. So there are a lot of neurochemicals floating around in our brains, and who we love, we have no control over who we love. And this is, being a psychologist, this is one of my real big beefs with the fundamentalist community being against homosexuality. These people have nobody. I don't have any control. You don't have any control. Nobody has control over who they love. It is neurochemicals, people. That's all it is. If you think you can control who you love, think again. And you can go on Google Scholar, and I'm sure there's a lot of research about that, but basically the two main neurochemicals that are involved are oxytocin and serotonin. So, hey Anacha, thanks for coming in. It must be, about 3 o'clock in the morning where you are? I know you're on the other side of the ocean. Oh, wait a minute. Australia doesn't exist, does it? I'm just kidding, not you. So, anyway, but yeah, Free Spirit. With going off on it wasn't really a tangent because I was planning on getting into it anyway, but getting back to your point, love with conditions is not free will. It's not even love. That is so true. If God, any God, I don't care what God, is going to love us with strings attached, number one, it ain't love, and number two, you're in an abusive relationship and get the hell out. Oh, really, Nacha? See, I am really, really bad with time zones, especially when it comes to the southern hemisphere. And so, 10 a.m. Cool. Well, Free, it's actually on a spectrum if you want to be really honest. Free Spirit says, recently I have come to realize that being straight or gay is just a title. It is. It's also on a spectrum. And if you really want to throw a wrench into fundamentalist claims, you can say there are males that have more female-like brains, and there are females that have more male-like brains. Because there are. It is a scientific fact. Next time you have a fundamentalist crowing at you about homosexuality is sin and all that, just throw that wrench in there. Well, you do know that some males have more female-like brains, and some females have more male-like brains. And if you really want to throw a wrench in their day, you can bring in oh, I forget what it's called. What is it when they're born with both sex organs? I can't remember what it's called. I'm drawing a blank here, people. Help me out. I can't believe that's a simple word. What is it? So basically, when a person is born with two sex organs, the parents are given a choice at birth as to whether to assign their baby male or female. Guess what? Sometimes the parents get it wrong. So the parents might assign the baby a female sex, but their gender is actually male. And so that's another thing that if you want to have fun with the fundamentalists, hermaphroditism. Yes, thank you, Marianne. Hermaphroditism. So that's another little wrench you can throw into the fundamentalist and have fun with them. Say, you know what? Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm probably being bad here. I'm giving you guys all sorts of ideas of how to have fun with the fundies, and And it's probably bad of me to do that, but oh God. So anyway, but yeah, so yeah, and that's another thing, Free Spirit. Um, Fundies will tell you that humans are the only animals that have homosexuality. That is actually not true. Monkeys of any sort, we're talking bonobos, we're talking macaques, any kind of monkey will have homosexuality. Chimps, gorillas, any non-human primate is going to have some homosexuality. That's just the way it is, you know. And I think maybe lions may also, at times, have homosexual acts. Yeah, Free Spirit. They don't like talking to me. They don't. I'm going to tell you right now, they do not like talking to me. So anyway, there's the FYI on do we have free will scientifically. Jury's still out. Like I said, there is a paper, a journal article in the description. I did not know about them having oral sex, Free Spirit. That's actually quite interesting. Yes, compelled unbeliever, we are apes. So anyway, I just wanted to come on here and tell you a little bit about what science says about free will. And, you know, theologically, even though I don't really care about, I mean, I guess you could say I care about theology because my channel is all about theology in one way or another. But anyway, all right, guys. Anything else? Alrighty, have a great day and